What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I want to break down what's happening to the overall markets thus far, what's going on with the earnings that just came out, and Jerome Powell's speech, which was today, not to mention Biden's speech in just a couple of hours, and all the stuff that's been going on for NIO, as we have lots of data and stuff to be discussing. But before I break things down, all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very, very soon, just a couple of weeks. Anyways, when it comes to NIO is actually flat for the day, up 0.00%, completely flat, not really up or down actually. And the question is, what's going to happen from here? NIO does have a slight amount of potential to try to uptrend a little bit more and try to get that test of $6 very, very soon. But this is also going to be determined by some other factors, which include Joe Biden's speech coming out later for today, also some more unemployment numbers. So let's talk about this. For tomorrow, it's going to be Friday, March 8th. I just want to mention that at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the non-farm payrolls, unemployment data coming out, and not to mention manufacturing payrolls and lots of data involving employment. So that's going to be very important. The unemployment rate is going to be very important. We'll see if it's at 3.7%. That's what the projection is showing, and we'll see what happens with that. That's all coming out an hour before the market opens. Besides that, we had Jerome Powell speaking today, and he just answered a lot of questions from the Senate. Didn't make as many bold claims, continuing to say that it depends on the data, and the Fed's just going to be looking to see how things go. Besides that, we're just going to be looking to see how things continue. For earnings, we just had Broadcom and Costco announce their earnings. I'll be talking about those in just a minute. And besides that, there's not really a whole lot coming up besides America's card marts, which is all very, very minor compared to others we've seen. So for today, we have Joe Biden's State of the Union address. He's going to be giving a very important speech. And this is going to be his last State of the Union address until the 2024 election for November. So it's going to be very, very important. Now, as Biden speaks, he's going to be speaking at about 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So whatever he says could have a big effect on the markets. So we'll be watching to see what he ends up saying. The market has been pumping approaching this big speech, and there is a good chance that it could actually remain up for some time. But then once the speech is done with, I believe that the big reaction will be the data, which is going to matter a lot more. So anticipating the speech, the market's been pumping, and we'll see what happens after that. For earnings, I just want to mention that Costco missed its holiday quarter revenue expectations, despite the big growth we saw overall, especially online. EPS was a nice beat at $3.92. However, revenue was a miss at $58 billion below the $59 billion expectation. On top of this, their net income did increase, which is not bad whatsoever. Most of their earnings were pretty good, I would say. There are some things worth noting. That's the fact that the inflationary factor has been affecting them. And they're going to continue to grow no matter what, because despite this, there is some good projections coming out. Also talk about how they're opening 4 new clubs, including 3 in the US and 1 in China, and they're going to be opening more moving forward. So there is a lot of things growing right here, especially excuse me, when it comes to their e-commerce sales, and they're projecting more growth to continue. So pretty good earnings, but they did miss on revenue, and for that reason, cost goes down just a little bit. Not like extremely horrible. Overall, but their share price is still not too happy. This wasn't really enough to get this thing to wow these investors. So it is what it is for Costco. Now, for Broadcom, which just announced its earnings as well, there is room for AI growth. They ended up beating a lot of estimates out there with $10.99 for their EPS, which is quite good, with net revenue hitting about $11.96 billion, beating a lot of expectations. However, unfortunately, their revenue they ended up saying that the Semiconductor Solutions Group posted revenue that fell short of analyst expectations. So, despite that, different sectors are not always the same and they're not doing as well. So, with revenue expectations not necessarily being as strong, and with this coming out, Broadcom is still kind of flat because of this, didn't really make much of a move. They had pretty good earnings overall, but some sectors were just not as strong as what investors wanted. So that's also kind of flat. Now, when it comes to NIO, some analysts are seeing 69% upside for the stock. Is it a buy now? And talking about how in 2024 there's a lot of progress for NIO, a lot of potential for it nonetheless. Many analysts are saying, this is from Deutsche Bank, they're still maintaining a buy rating for NIO, seeing a price target of $9 as EV sales are projected to grow. This is good news for NIO as we're seeing lots of buyers still very excited about its growth potential. And with vehicle sales up just a little bit, there is more potential for big growth later on across the year. Margins are also improving somewhat. They're not like that great, but they're improving a little bit. So let's hope they continue to cut costs and they continue to grow nonetheless. So with Deutsche Bank giving NIO a good rating, that's a good piece of news. NIO Phone received the 2024 IF Design Award, which is good news for them. This is not only a mobile phone, but it's also like a product between NIO and the vehicle users, which is good news for them. That's good to see a lot of growth from their end, and let's hope that this continues moving forward. As far as NIO goes, the price-price ratio is showing a little bit of life as NIO is holding up relatively well. The market pump to NIO is kind of flat for the day, so not really doing a whole lot, but nonetheless, NIO did pump quite a bit after his earnings came out. As far as seasonality goes, Fridays do have a tendency of being green about 53% of the time. And we tend to see more volatility around the second to last hour of the day and 11 a.m. Besides that, I'm not really seeing any other changes in terms of news and such. For NIO's overall volume of 46 million was a little bit below average, so it's kind of losing some volume, turning a little bit flat, despite the fact that short volume is a little bit down. What do I see for the share price? Here's my answer, guys. NIO is on a slight uptrend, but the issue with NIO is that we rejected many, many times around 5.9. I said this yesterday. So it's very, very tough resistance. And the last time we hit this, we got a little rejection. So I think that there's a chance that NIO might touch 5.9, but if we break it, we could see 6.2. If we reject again, we could come back down to about 5.65. My gut's telling me that it's actually kind of losing some momentum. It's losing volume. So it might touch 5.9 again, then come back down to 5.6 and just continue to trade kind of sideways. That's what I'm seeing for NIO, a little pop and drop like move. Now, for SPY, this is going to be more dependent on a lot of data. We're on a slight uptrend. We're still trying to hold this 515 area. So we'll see if we get another continuation to the push. Unfortunately, I'm not really a fortune teller. I don't know what's going to happen with all this data coming out tomorrow with the employment numbers. So SPY is either going to push much higher to 517 and then possibly get a rejection up there, or it's about to get a big rejection from here and come back down to about 512. It all depends on the employment numbers and what the reaction is. So just be very careful. We'll have to wait until tomorrow. For Tesla, this thing was forming a bullish wedge, trying to get a breakout. It was doing very, very well, but it failed to break that resistance around 180. So now it depends on the unemployment numbers. If we do get a push up, 182 is coming. If we get the rug pull, we're going to come down to 175. The chart is showing some life that's trying to establish a higher low. It's trying to bounce, but this also depends on news and data. So unfortunately, I can't really promise anything about the data. We're just going to react to it. So we'll just have to wait and see. I can tell you, however, that Apple's looking very weak right now. If we get decent data, it might not even affect it that much. It's still continuing to downtrend and managed to fail to close above 170. And there is a risk of this coming all the way down to 167. If that fails us, I think 165 is coming next. Apple is continuing to downtrend, looking kind of weak, so just be very careful. With the QQQ, this thing was attempting to break out, but it got a rejection off 446.75. That's exactly where the all-time high was previously, and it's kind of struggling to get that break for now. So if we're bullish, we have to break this and push up towards 448. If we're bearish, we want to see it come down to 441, then 439. Overall, try to hit this high and kind of reject it, so we have like a double top-like formation. So there's a risk of this coming back down towards 440. Overall, the QQQ is showing some weakness. It could drop a little bit more. Not the best, but just to be safe, I'm not going to make the call just yet. This does look like it might reject, but let's just see what the unemployment data causes. Do we continue to reject or not? Be very, very careful. For Nvidia, it's continuing to push. We actually hit 950, so this is where we're at resistance. If we break past 950, it could just keep going. There's no sign of this rejecting yet. To turn bearish, we need to see this thing loose about 920 then 915, and then there could be a move back down to 900. But overall, this is still bullish. It's still holding up very nicely. We'll see how it reacts to the unemployment data, but it still looks bullish on the chart. There's no sign of any sort of rejection. So that being said, guys, SPY and the QQQ hit some extremes. There's no guarantee they keep pushing. It's going to depend a lot on the data. The QQQ is looking like it might reject harder than SPY, but just to be safe, we'll wait and see. We're at some type of resistance, so we'll see how it goes. Same thing could be said about Tesla. NIO's in the same place. 5.93 is kind of tough. We'll see how we react to that. I am a little worried we might hit this and come back down towards 5.6. So we'll see how it reacts and we'll see how things go from there. Anyways, thank you for listening. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys on the next one tomorrow. Thanks again, and peace out.